Greetings, everybody. Greetings, greetings, greetings. And welcome to Behind the Veil. You can't see it. I got the thing all messed up right now. I'm in too close. Tonight, I am excited. I am extremely excited. I'm excited tonight. So come on in and share and share and share on Behind the Veil. Y'all, I'm Stephen Williams. They call me the Good Bishop, and I'd like to welcome you to this platform. Thank you for allowing me to come into your space. And boy, do we have something that's going to be wonderful tonight. My friend Shawnte Spriggs, I can't wait to have this conversation. We've known each other for a long time, but I've never had this conversation and I've never discussed this. And so with her, and so it is going to be illuminating and enlightening. Please, y'all click and share and tell everybody, come on to Behind the Veil. Listen, I have concluded y'all should cash app to Behind the Veil. Let me tell you why. Y'all ain't getting this on no other platform that's got the Lord's in it. No. The stuff we are doing on this platform, the information that we're doing, it is absolutely informative. It is absolutely great. And you should, I want to sew into this so I can take care of people like Shawnte, because she's national, international. She is grandiose. Listen, you know how we do it. You're gonna love her. She has a personality that is bar none. It's gonna be wonderful. Thank you for joining. Now listen, tonight I don't want you to sit back. If you have any questions, like I have questions about it, HIV, and we're gonna talk about knowing the healer, because we've been knowing her. She's been knowing Jesus as long as I've known her. So I can't wait to talk about this. And I want you to get your questions ready, type them in the chat, put them on the thing so we can pull them up and talk about it. But I've got to play my song. Now the song is off of the Good Ground CD. Thank you all so much for your support with the Good Ground CD. You all have been downloading, listening to it, and it has been fun. Listen, I got a special thing for you too. I just messed around and found some just amazed at this. So please, ma'am, please, sir, put your hands together, because this woman exemplifies this song right here. Yes, she does. Right there, right there. Everybody clap your hands, because she got it. Praise him, New Orleans style. Oh, good Carolina, we will. Anybody got victory? If you got it, victory. Come on. Victory in my voice. Victory in my voice, y'all. Thank you, Charlene. Come on, Cynthia. Victory over all the noise. My sister's watching. It in my mind. Cause I left no doubt behind. And I left no doubt behind. Say it's victory in my hand. Oh, victory in my hand. I got victory in this day. I got victory in this day. I can feel it in Shawnte, we go. This is it. My God is in control. My God is in control. Enemy thought he had me down. I could turn it around. Thought I'd stay that way. But I'm in a brand new day. Come on. I got showed up. Didn't he show up? What? I got the victory. Everybody clap your hands. Everybody clap your hands. Come on and clap your hands, y'all. Oh, verse 2. I got victory in my walk. Victory in my walk, y'all. I got victory in my talk. Oh, victory in my talk. I can feel it over me. I can feel it over me. I scream, I got a victory. I got it, I got it, I got it, I got it, I got it. Victory in my heart. Oh, victory in my heart. I am in my brand new start. Said I'm in my brand new start. I can feel it in my soul. I can feel it in my soul. My God is in control. Said my God is in control. Anytime, Cynthia. Oh, enemy thought he had me down. Oh, my God turned it around. Thought I'd stay we go. We get ready to go to church. What? Everybody clap your hands. Come on. Everybody clap your hands. Everybody clap your hands. Come on. Y'all ain't clapping. Oh, praises be. Come on. To the one. To the one. Come on. To the one. To the one. He's my Savior in chief. I got the victory. I got the victory. I got the victory. All in my hands. All in my fingers. From the crown of my head. I said it's all over me. Said it's in my war. And it's in my door. I got the victory. Oh, came to see. I got the victory. I got the victory. So I want the world to know. I got the victory. It's what I do and everything God say. I got the victory. I have it now and for the rest of my time. I got the victory. I got the victory. I got the victory. Oh, I got the victory. I got it. I got the victory. Yeah, I got the victory. I got the victory. You can't have it, yo. Said I got it. I got the victory. Oh, I got it. Hit that note I like. All in my hands. All in my feet. Come on. I got the victory. Yes, sir. I got the victory no matter what it is that I'm experiencing right now. I feel like a good DJ tonight. I am excited. Shawnte, we're going to talk about that. Listen, I did that whole project by myself at the crib, girl. Right, girl, listen, and we'll talk about it later. Something happened to me. Listen, I have one of God's best. This lady right here is a complete trip. She is so much fun, even on a down day. I've never seen her be down. I have the honor of having with me Shawnte Spriggs. She is the epitome of DC raised and Carolina made. She is a native of Washington, D.C. You're going to hear it in her accent tonight. She resided in North Carolina for many years before returning home to Maryland, however she said. Y'all are here. One of Shawnte's biggest joys is her family. She is the eldest of her siblings, proud mother of two, and marvelous Mimi to her grandchildren. Shawnte's passion is for coaching has intensified throughout the years. As a result, she has been afforded the opportunity to coach, train, and consult with various individuals, entrepreneurs, faith-based communities, and organizations. Shawnte has spent most of her career developing individuals, driving performance, and managing teams in her role as a senior executive for the global financial institution for a global financial institution for over 15 years. She serves the community as a support group facilitator, a change agent for women living with HIV. Shawnte is a master facilitator for national training initiatives, health, HIV literacy, Block, which is building leaders of color, Clear, which is choosing life, empowerment, action results, and healthy relationships. As a lover of knowledge and higher learning, Shawnte has earned her AA in psychology, Christian counseling, and a BA in psychological life coaching, Liberty University. She is currently pursuing an MBA in executive leadership in Liberty. God bless her heart. Shawnte manages and balances her career, passion for coaching, driving for continuing education, HIV diagnosis with positivity and resilience. She continues to live life purposed, fulfilled, and God knows that last part. She lives it out the whole loud. When I tell whoa, if you see her, she sucks the room. When she walks in the room, everything else has to be subjected to her. Like Jesus walking through the garden. Amen. Just Jesus coming through. Amen. pulling on. I'm trying to get. This is Shawnte. Welcome to Behind the Veil, Shawnte, Miss Shawnte Spriggs.
Bishop, thank you for having me. Oh my God, not out loud like that.
I'm talking
Not.
about out loud. She is Shawnte. Oh, y'all, she is Shawnte. Welcome to Behind the Veil.
I'm so glad to be here. Now, beyond the veil, are we gonna go out? Are we gonna be slain? How does this go?
Oh, no, no, no. Listen, this is that. You remember, so you know how preachers come behind the pulpit
Okay,
and we have all them conversations in the back room,
like the green room.
like the green room, and we
Okay,
and we talk about stuff that we don't talk about out front to the people. So, boo, we behind the veil, and this is where we have real conversation. All right, and we talk about stuff. I bring it to the audience. We talk about depression. We talk about everything,
right. I love
money.
that.
We talk about education. We talk about fatherhood, single parents. We talk about it all. And it's stuff that the church refuses to address. But doggone it, I'm the good bishop. So, and I ain't scared. So we'll
The
talk about
good bishop, because
we the
there's
good
bad.
bishop. We the good.
There's bad ones out there, but you're the good bishop.
Welcome. I am so excited to have you. I
Thank
have
you.
a chillin' and already told us don't show out, but this is just what we do when we see each other. I love this lady on the phone on our vidcast right here. Listen, we got so much to talk about, and I can't wait to hear. As my audience can see, you certainly when you hear HIV, you hear all this other stuff, but she is certainly maintained. She's beautiful, and she's gorgeous. She's doing her thing, and she's looking glowing. And we get ready to talk about this, the HIV. Tell us the difference. Tell our audience, and I know we have heard it years ago, but what's the difference between before we get into you? What is the difference between the HIV and the AIDS? Let's talk about the differences between those two.
Great question. Because when I first started my journey, I really didn't know the difference. I thought it was the same. But before I get started, I want to say congratulations on good ground. So
Yeah.
congratulations. So if you don't have it, you guys go out there and get it. Support the bishop. But at the beginning, when I first was diagnosed, I thought it was all the same. So I thought HIV/AIDS, because that's typically how you see it, was the same thing. So as I did my research after my diagnosis, what I found was that HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. And so what that means is we have what we call our CD4 count or our T cells. And so if your T cells are high, that means that you're kind of healthy. And so they kind of gauge that difference between HIV and AIDS according to your T cells. So for instance, my T cells was at 1200, which means I had a pretty good, healthy immune system, which we'll talk about that later. Because just because you have HIV doesn't mean that you'll be sick. But whenever your CD4 count or your T cells drop below 250 or 200, that's when they consider you to be AIDS level, because that means at that point you're susceptible to other type of diseases such as cancers, leukemia, and your organs can start potentially breaking down. But one thing I want to do is dismantle the myth that if you find out your diagnosis is AIDS, it doesn't mean that it has to always be AIDS, because you have that factor. So for instance, if you find out and your T cells are at 50 or 100, which I know some people that were like that, they came in on AIDS level, but with the proper regimen and treatment, they were able to get their T cells up, and now they're actually living a fulfilling life because their T cells are between 500 and 700, so they no longer consider AIDS level. Did that make sense? I hope I didn't lose you.
No, 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 no. I definitely understand that. That's clear. That I mean that's so let me ask, because this ain't on no questions. This is just me and you shooting from the hip. Um um is HIV similar to like that of cancer? What's the comparison? Is there a comparison, or like
That's
how?
a good question, because one of the things I found out once again with research, because some of this you won't actually go find out the information until you've been afflicted with it.
Right.
And so that's what I did. And so I found out that they actually use the CD4 count and T cells to actually assist see where cancer patients are as well. So that's a determining factor across the board. So there are some similarities. So just like we have to keep our CD4 count high,
Wow.
Cancer, people living with cancer need to keep their CD4 count high, because once again, that's saying how many white T cells do you have within you that are healthy. So the more that you produce, then that's the healthier your immune system is. If it starts lowering, then that means that the HIV or cancer can replicate itself. Kind of very similar to how COVID is.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that whole notion of COVID. When we get to that point, is this like the disease attacks your ability to reproduce those cells, the T cells? It like fights against you to reproduce those cells. Is that how that works? This is just me asking.
So actually what it does, it actually mutates it. So it actually replicates it. And what the treatment does is it actually slows the replication of it down.
Oh
And,
wow.
and so left untreated, it can actually mutate and keep replicating itself. And then what happens is at that point, your CD4 count will go low. And then we have what we call our viral load. So your viral load is how much of the HIV virus is in your system. As that goes lower, if you get sick, your CD4 count, the viral load gets higher. So our goal is to make sure our CD4 count is high and our viral load, which is the how much of the virus is in you, is low. And so at this point, mine is undetected, meaning that it doesn't even show up. It's not enough of the virus in my system to actually show.
Oh
And that's
wow.
where you want to be.
Now, is that because of medicine? Is that because
Yes.
of the medicine? It does what it does so that you become undetected. Because I've
Yes.
heard that term before
Yep.
as well. All right, so that's me. That was me being nosy. For those of you who know me, I like to ask a whole bunch of questions, and I didn't want to do research because I know she is an authority on it. So I better off asking her than trying to go look at a book myself this time. Um, so tell me, how did you find out you had it? Do you know where you got it, and how is it transmitted? Because for years it was. God, I hope I don't get in trouble for this. Don't sue me, Facebook. But for years it was associated with homosexuality, lesbianism. For years, that was the whole connotation behind it, and then. What we call heterosexual people started getting it, and then they were telling us that it was being transferred from partners who was doing stuff. But like what is the truth? What's real and what's the truth? Tell us the truth.
Okay, and that was a loaded question, so I'm gonna try to go back and break it down a little bit more. And I
Yes.
just want to ask the audience, feel free. I'm an open book. Feel free if you have any questions. Feel free to go ahead and type them in, and I'll be more than glad to answer your questions as well. So basically, let me first start with how I found out. So I was actually at a conference. I had went to see one of my bishop friends, but at the time he was a pastor, kind of sort of like you, Bishop, and I hadn't seen him in years, and he invited me to check this out, a women's conference that he was having. And his church was thriving in the Lynchburg area. And these were kind of things that we kind of talked about for years. And so he had seen me somewhere else and said, "Hey, Spriggs," and that's what they call me. He said, "Spriggs, all these things that we talked about is happening, but you haven't came to my church." So I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and come." So I went to the conference, and we were supposed to go shopping that Saturday or just hang out. And it was my daughter and I. And he was actually taking care of some things at the church where I think he was counseling a couple of individuals. And so he had just said, "Well, hey, there's a health fair, different things going on here. Take a look at what's going on." They had like a beauty regimen part up to the conference. And so because I hadn't seen the church, I said, "I'm going to look around." So I stopped at the beauty part, and then I stopped at this particular part where they were doing screenings for HIV. And there was a group of young people, and anybody know I love young people. And so I was talking to the young girls there because some of them had knew me in passing, and they were showing some type of apprehension about getting tested for HIV. And I was like, look, y'all need to know your status. And so at the time I was married my second time. And so they had said, "Well, you need to know your status. You're married." I said, "Look, I get tested every year. Like, it doesn't matter whether I'm married or not. I'm from the DMV area, and it's prevalent there." So back then I was thinking, the myths that we heard that if you have it, it could be in your system for 10 years and things of that nature. So I was always getting tested, so I thought. And so I went ahead and they said, "Well, hey, Spriggs, if we take the test, will you sign up with us to take it?" And I said, "Sure, absolutely. I got you. Come on, let's sign up." So I did it as being a leader or being a mentor, which is what most of us do. And so when I got in there with the nurse, we were talking, and she said, "Well, you get your results in 15 minutes." I said, 15 minutes? I'm used to having to wait a week or two, and then they mail me the results. So I was just enamored with the way technology had kind of advanced and the healthcare system had advanced, that I was all like, "Oh my God, I got to get this done in Greensboro. We need to bring this there." And so I stepped out the room, and she said, "I'll call you back in 15 minutes and give you your results." So I was talking to the young ladies, and then she called me, and it seemed so quick. And I went in, and she said, "We're going to need to test you again because it's picking up HIV antibodies." And I said, "Excuse me, what is HIV antibodies?" And she said, "Well, it's picking up the HIV virus in your system." And literally at that point, like when they say your life goes in front of you, it kind of went in front of me, because my marriage had already gone through some challenges that we had overcome, and we were taught that you stay, no matter what. And I was like, God, this is what happens when people stay. This is what. Wait a minute, my life up to this point was crazy, and this is what I get. I'm about to die now. And so at that point, she had said that we need to prick another one of your fingers because it could be a bad batch. So we need to test you again. And we kind of switched roles. And I said, well, hey, I have about 10 girls out there that if they see my finger pricked along with my daughter, they're very intuitive. They're going to know that something is wrong. So I want you to prick another finger, but do not put a Band-Aid on it. And I said, at the count of 3, it's going to be lights, camera, action. And anybody knows me know I'm very dramatic at times. And so she was looking like, okay. And I said, when I go at the count of 3, I'm going to walk out of here like nothing else, like nothing happened. And sure enough, I said, you ready? And she said, yeah. I said, okay, 1, 2, 3. And I walked out, and I was like, whoo, whoo, whoo. Yes, thank you, Jesus. And I had already advised her that to come and find me in a pastor's study. I said, I'm going to his office, and whatever the results is to the second test, come there and tell me, because at that point, I'm going to need to be around my friend. And so I made my way to his office, and he was in there counseling someone. And I said, Lord Jesus, I don't want to do this right now, but we did what we had to do. And then the nurse came, and when she came in, we asked the young lady to be excused, and we closed the door. And I said, I think she's getting ready to tell you I'm HIV positive. And that's where my journey started.
Wow. How did you feel?
Oh my God. Numb. Because right afterwards we prayed, and he immediately got me out the church. And I remember we were in the car, and we were going to the mall, and you know me, Bishop, I love to shop. And I was not excited about going to the mall. I remember him asking me to scream, say something. I'm not a quiet person, but I couldn't say anything. I mean, he even said cuss at me, and I couldn't. And I know some of those words. I know some of those, but
Yes,
I
you
could
do.
not muster up
Thank you, Jesus.
any of those words at that time. I was numb. I felt like, not if I'm going to die. My question was, when am I going to die? How
Yeah,
long do I have?
yeah, yeah. I can imagine that was that emotion, and especially during that time, because we're talking about years ago now. That that was that
11
was
years ago.
yeah. And I mean, what did you do from that point? I mean, like, what was your next step? And let me preface this, you all, to my audience. Shawnte is she the church girl? I mean, we we sang in a group together. Listen, if there's gonna be a praise that's gonna break out, uh, if Shawnte is not in the praise, then there ain't no praise in the room. All right, and if she ain't in it, he ain't even there. And then she gonna create one if he ain't there, and she gonna do that while she shopping and looking good and all that good stuff. And um, and so what was your next step? Because I don't think you shared that. I didn't get that. I think by that time we were already on different paths, and I think I found out later, like
Yeah.
way later. I didn't get and so I was like, what was your next step at that point in time?
I got off the grid. I,
Yeah, you kind of faded into the because I guess you thought you were gonna die. Is that
yeah.
yeah?
And I didn't really have a lot of questions. I mean, I didn't have a lot of answers. And I had questions, but my questions were quickly answered with, okay, you're gonna die anyway, so why even ask that? If anything, I was more of in preparation mode. My son was getting ready to graduate from high school, and so I was like, okay, I have to get him through high school. I have to get him to college, and so I started focusing on different projects because I thought that I was going to die. The first step I did was, of course, I notified my husband, I notified my children, I notified everybody around me, my family. I brought them in because I knew, and you know, Bishop, I'm a strong person. I've been through
Yeah.
a lot of things, but I knew that this was bigger than me. I could not handle this one on my own. I let my leaders at my church know at the time. My job knew because I had no idea of how to navigate this, and
Wow.
I was vulnerable. I was very vulnerable, and I was like, well, if I only have 2 to 3 months to live, I'm gonna pull on everything that I can and everybody that I can. Some of those outcomes were good. Some wasn't the best because you got to be careful when you're vulnerable. But I will say, after notifying everyone, I had to find what I need to do next. Where do I go to get care? I went to my regular doctor, assuming you go in there and say, hey, I got HIV, and then they can treat you. I didn't know that I had to get an ID or infectious disease doctor. And so I
Oh,
ended
wow.
up finding a doctor because they're actually skilled in training just for infectious diseases. That's a whole different spectrum I wasn't aware of. And so because of the stigma that was attached to HIV and still is, it's getting better. I decided to go to a doctor in Charlotte. And so I would drive. At the time I was living in Cary. No, I was actually living in Greensboro before I moved to Cary. And I would drive from that area to Charlotte because I didn't want to run the risk of running into someone in Greensboro.
That you knew. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's go ahead and get to the meat of the question, that I use. So how did you approach God? Well, two things. Do you know how you contracted it? Do you know where you got it from?
Good question. That's the first question everyone typically asks me. The
Well,
answer is no.
that was like my 10th question. So
The answer is no, because surprisingly, and this is one of the things I kind of talk about in my book. Surprisingly, people were assuming, because like shortly afterwards, me and my husband split up, that's where I got it from.
right.
But as soon as I found out, him along with my son went with me to get tested. So we all got tested,
Right.
and he came up negative. And so I was really baffled then because I'm like, hold up now. Now I done been a certain way in this marriage. Now what's going on? I really at that point wanted to die. Like I wanted to get up out of here because I did not understand. But I later on found out that because once again, like the viral load, if I didn't have enough of the virus in me, even though I had been sexually active with him, there wasn't enough to pass it on to him.
Pass on.
And so
right.
I had to go through everyone I was with before then. And of course, who's going to really say, Shawnte, it was me.
It was, yeah.
And so I had to deal with finding closure where there is no closure. And that was tough. That was tough because I didn't get an answer.
Now you done made a statement. Finding closure where there is no closure. How in the world? I felt Jesus. I got almost quit. I felt him.
I decided to use my creativity and my innovation that I've always had. I've always been like, I was the only child for a long time. And I would create these things in my head about, working a type of job or being in front of people and speaking. It's funny because I'm doing those things now. And so when I couldn't find a closure, I said, any other time I can come up with something. You have a problem, I can come up with a solution. There's a gap somewhere, I can figure out what the gap is, but there is no closure. And so I said, well, you know what? I'm going to create my closure because guess what? There is no closure. And so that's when I start looking at the fact that, wait a minute, if there is no closure, maybe it's just that. There is no closure. This is not the end of something. Maybe this is the beginning of it. And so I start looking at it differently and not looking at, okay, what was the root cause of it? Where are you now? And where's this going to take you? And surprisingly, with the women that I support, it's kind of 50-50. But I have a majority of them that don't know. And so most of the stories I'm hearing, people have an idea where it came from, but they are not concrete sure. And so you have more people that are sitting up there not actually finding the closure or finding out who actually infected them. So my goal is to show them, okay, that's what happened to you. You here, We got the same denominator. Our numerator may be different. Our stories are all different, but like Alita Adams said, I don't care how you get here, just get here if you can. You're here now. So what are we going to do to kind of move forward?
Wow. Wow. That's that. Look, if we could take that approach, if I could preach that approach with a lot of things other than HIV, find closure, even though you can't find closure, we'd have better people in the body of Christ. Let me get to the good question. What is this conversation between you and God? Because you and I know him. We've been dancing and hollering and screaming, speaking in tongues and rolling in the floor. We did that for years, and you you do it a lot more flamboyant than I do, and a lot with more grace, and you do it. I be throwing little shots. I mean, you do it. So what is this conversation? Because I am certain I would be perplexed with God. How in the world I have committed my life to you, you the healer, by his stripes, I'm healed, doggone it. And that's what we feed. How do you reconcile, or what is this conversation that you're having with God when you're saying, okay, wait a minute, they have given me a death sentence? Because if I know you like I know you, one of the first things you're gonna do is go, you asking God a whole bunch of questions, because your life is centered around the church and praise, and you worship, you if anybody, you all carries a banner for Pentecostalism and God and praise and he is, it's Shawnte. I'm just trying to tell you. I mean, she's. I mean, when you see her, it won't matter where it is. You see in the club, she'll be talking about God somewhere along the line. And she might have a little choice words, but then Jesus come out on the back end. Jesus come in on the back end,
Because
and
he's good. So good.
I'm praying for this one. What was that? And we got so much to talk about, but what was that? We're gonna put your book up before
Okay.
the. But what was that about? Um, are you mad and upset? Because a lot of people are mad and upset with God right now for things, and they can't reconcile that he is the healer, but I'm not healed. You know what I'm saying? How did you deal with that?
Well, I had to come to grips with, well, I would say at the beginning, I had some questions, but like I said, they were few, because I was the type that whatever was thrown at me, then that must be what I deserved. And so I kind of felt
Mm.
like, even as a child, I went through certain traumatic situations, and even as an adult, I went through traumatic situations. And uh, being a product of abuse, you tend to think that you're getting abused because of something that you did. And so at that time, my viewpoint of God, uh, my father, wasn't so much like the father aspect of it. It was more so, okay, so this is what my plight is. This is what I have to endure, because somewhere in here I did something wrong, and it's okay. I'll just deal with it. And I remember I stopped asking questions, and I would just cry. Like, that was when I began to just like weep before him, and I would just travail and just cry, because I'm just like, I don't get it. And I remember one day I was on the floor, and I was just laid out prostrate, and I was crying. And I was like, God, the pain is too much, because I was facing my job. I never stopped working. I was facing my job. I was still active in ministry. I was still active at church, still active in my children's lives, going through a divorce. And I kept having to show up to things, and I would get in my room and break down. And I remember being on the floor, and I was crying. I said, God, this pain is too much. I can't get up another day. I can't get up. I just can't. And I remember laying there, and I said, God, I'm not going to move off of this floor until you show me a reason in this. Like, I don't get it. I don't see this. And he did something very unique. I didn't have enough strength to get up for me, but anyone knows me that if you have an issue or if you have a concern, I will fight for you. I'm an advocate for you. And immediately when I was on the floor, it dawned on me, and I actually saw like another woman uh, laying on the floor, kind of going through the same thing that I was going through. And I said, oh my God, there's someone just like me somewhere else. And I didn't have enough strength to get up for myself, but I had enough strength to get up for that woman. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to start taking baby steps because I gotta go help her. And so sometimes God will use the things that you're gifted and you're skilled and you're anointed to do, which I'm anointed to build, I'm anointed to help, I'm anointed to serve, to kind of pull you out of what you were in. And so as I started seeing that, I started seeing little sprinkles of God everywhere. And I started saying, oh, that's why you had me go to a women's conference. Oh, that's why I found out this. And the more and more I saw it, I started seeing my history and my history before HIV and how he brought me out, and my history before the abuse and how he brought me out, and my history of being told I was never going to graduate and being homeless, you know, my last year in high school, but looking at, I have an executive position. And so my history with God, and I heard, you know, my apostle say this, my history with God was the thing that kind of helped my mind stay intact. So I wasn't bitter with him no more. Now I was bitter with some of his people. I'm gonna be honest with you. Some of his people was getting on my nerves at that time. But it shifted from me having this aspect of God one way to me recognizing that I was something valuable to God. And at that time, I would say HIV was the one thing that started showing me I was his daughter, because he started making provision for me. I started seeing it. He started opening up so many doors, even with HIV. And I transitioned from that, you know, helpless, it's my fault, I deserve this, to understand that if I mess up today, my father, he's going to take me right on back, because that's how much he loves me. And so my whole relationship with God changed as a result. I can't say I had a lot of bitter days with him. I didn't understand a lot. And I'll say, well, I guess I got to stick around until I understand more. And slowly but surely, and I still have my days, but I would say I do have more good days now than questionable days as before. I know that was a lot. Sorry.
Oh, no, no, no. I think that is because I have something on my podcast where I say unpack this. All right. Because you made a statement that I think we need to go back and revisit. How did you handle the thought of this is something you deserve?
Mm,
A lot of people feel like whatever the tragedy is because of something they did in their past. And they carry that weight of, oh, well, I deserve this. How did you navigate through that? Because I see that as a real challenge and an issue, um, that people self-destruct
yeah.
because they feel like a little trouble is what they deserve. And you know said you saw yourself through God's eyes. I need you to unpack the first part about you deserve it, and then we got to talk about how do you see yourself through this HIV. God, how do you find? You literally found God. You're the woman with the issue of blood. Like you really found God in it, and that is amazing. Like those two things, those are amazing statements that you're telling me. Talk to me about that. Getting over that, you think you deserved it, you know, or what is that?
But I mean, dealing with African Americans generally, that goes all the way back to slavery. We think if we don't do certain things, then our master's going to do something, or we're going to deal with some type of punishment. So some of this stuff was trauma and generations of trauma that we've already had on us. And so one things I had to look at was, okay, but what do you do when you was just simply being a wife?
Mm,
Like, okay, I understand now. You catch me a couple of years ago, or you caught me in DC time. That's a different Shawnte. But what about now?
yeah.
And I remember when I saw that young lady, and I said, well, I have to get up to go rescue her and help her. Me seeing that and me actually doing the work, there's a gap. There's a time lapse in
Mm,
that, because I did that, but I had to go first get help. So I went to a community center so I can go to a support group to get help. I found a therapist. I actually checked myself in, what some people don't realize, twice into a behavior health treatment, twice for 2 weeks. And it wasn't nothing that like I was cracking up right there. I knew I felt myself not being myself and I need to go get help. I'm going to check myself in. And I did that to get the necessary help that I needed. And so when I started actually doing the work and I saw that it was working, or you get to one step and you meet someone, or like I went to a conference and I was connected, and then the next day I was actually speaking to the congressmen and women representing Maryland. And I'm like, hold up, how did I transition that quick? And so
Yeah.
I started seeing little things that kind of worked along the journey and along the way. And so then I started realizing that no, this didn't happen to me because it's something that I did. This happened to me because God is equipping me to handle this. He's been showing me all along. I've been a trainer and facilitator for years, pretty much most of my adult life, but had no idea that I would be training and facilitating on this level with HIV initiatives. And so I went from actually being the victim and being helpless, because sometimes that's easier for us to be, because then we have a lot of people that can say, woe is me, and they can pat you on your shoulder, and then if I go act up, I can kind of blame my trauma or point to that to say that's why I did it. But I kind of took ownership, and it was harder for me because that's not what I had seen, not when it comes to HIV, especially not when it comes to HIV. And so I took the viewpoint of, no, this is not my fault. This is not, and guess what? The women I come in contact with, or the men that I come in contact with, it's nobody's fault that we're here. But it's going to be our fault if we take this and we decide to die when we really don't have to die. That will be our fault. But this is not our fault. And I started seeing me differently, and it started building my confidence. I have to say that was all through God.
Well, I got a good message right there. You don't have to die in it. You don't have to. It ain't your fault that you're in it, but you sure don't have to die in it. God,
No.
oh.
And who's to say I'm not healed? Like your question, you was like,
Yeah.
we know the healer, and here I am dealing with this. But I had to look at, I'm living a healthy life.
Yeah.
I'm undetectable.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
I went through this whole COVID pandemic. I didn't get sick. I had a couple of sinus infections here and there, but I was okay. So what when we look at what really needed to be healed?
Ooh.
Was it my blood need to be healed? Or
Ooh,
was it some
Shawnte.
things that I had to go
Shawnte.
through that God had to heal this heart of mine and heal this mind, and he had to use the blood situation to do it? And so that's what I had to come to grips with. So if you say I'm healed, yes, absolutely, I'm healed, because he did some work on me through this. So it may not look like what it needs to look like to you or to others, because they're like, well, technically you're showing undetected, but once HIV, always HIV. Okay, but you know what? He did so much more to that, because HIV, that's more than my status. So.
Shawnte, girl, I was supposed to give you license years ago. I'm gonna send them to you in the mail. You've been bootlegging for years. Oh, you're not because who is to say that he hasn't used the situation to heal you? And it wasn't just, it's not the blood, it's you, the person, the image of who he is. That's what needed the healing. Oh, girl. Now you done said a whole mouthful. Now you done said a whole mouthful.
Because
God.
Bishop, I was showing up and I would prepare myself. You know how we were doing. We have to sing down through the years. We would get up there and I would prepare myself for that, prepare myself to be on stage, prepare myself for work. But now I just show up. I just show up in my authenticity because I'm comfortable with who I am, because he did some healing and he's still doing some healing on me. And he's working on those areas that I would have never touched. I would have never touched my trauma. I would have never touched my abandonment issues. I would have never tapped into that. I would have kept performing. I would have kept wearing the mask. And every now and then it tries to come up, and I have to be like, you're not that person no more. So why are you making those same decisions that you were before you were healed? You're not that person no more. So your options changed. Your tax bracket changed. Everything has changed. So stop making those same decisions when you were sitting up there, needing assistance. And I'm gonna leave it there.
She has shut down behind the veil. She shut it down. It took Shawnte to come and shut it down. God. Woo! Girl, now you done said so. All right. Woo. That I'm gonna have to go back just to pull that little nugget out, and I'm gonna have a whole revival. off of that one little nugget. That
I'm
was
gonna come. I'm gonna come too because I need a good dance.
that was so powerful. Who's to say he didn't heal me? Because what was really sick? Mm. Anyway, how did the church? How did the church and how does the church deal with this notion of HIV? You don't shut us down. How does the church deal with it, or did they deal with it then, and how do they deal with it now? I know it. Cynthia Crawford, I'm gonna dance too. God Almighty.
I'm gonna dance
Yeah,
with you, Cynthia.
listen, if I had some shouting music on here, I need to play. I need to put some shouting music in my thing so I
Cause
can.
he did it. He did it. He worked on me. Still working
Oh.
on me.
So how does the church?
Oh,
So
how does
where is the church, and what have we done, and what have we not done? What did they do? What did they not do? How did we stigmatize you? Crystal Perry, tell me, let me get this tambourine.
that's my sister. That's my baby sister. Get it, sissy. Get it.
That
The
is so
broken ones,
funny.
those are the best ones.
Oh God, Gloria, I got my tambourine. I'm gonna get my tambourine too. All right, let's talk about the
Okay.
church.
Okay,
All
so I
right,
would say that, and I know some people have some bad, examples of the church during this time, but
yeah.
for me to be like, as someone said last night, a pioneer or trailblazer with this, that wasn't my experience. I immediately let my leaders know. I reached out to my worship pastor at the time, and I said, hey, this is what's going on with me, because for one, I was up front, and I wanted people, I would at least wanted my leaders to know, just in case I'm absent. Once again, I thought I was going to die. So I didn't know what was going to take place. So I wanted them to know. So I reached out to him and told him, let my leaders know. And they said they were praying for me. But during that time, my church went through a transition. And so we had another set of leaders to come. And when they came, their children just gravitated to me and my kids. And I'm like, oh my God, I got the pastor's kids. I got to watch what I say around these kids. I can't just let anything just come out loosely because I got the pastor's kids. And so as a result, I said, well, you know what? I'm probably going to need to have a conversation with the parents to kind of let them know what's going on with me, because people may be funny about that with their children. And I remember talking to Bishop Ronald Godby, and I expressed to him what was going on with me. And I said, hey, I'm kind of open with it, but, I just haven't done too much with it. And first thing he did was he commended me for being outspoken about it. And then he said, do you want to tell your story? And I said, excuse me? He said, yeah, I think what we're going to do in the next couple of months, if you're up to it, is we're going to actually have you come out and tell your story. And so it was a thing with Black History Month. Oh, no, I think it was MLK's birthday. And he had my daughter and I come out, and he said there's heroes amongst us all the time that we're unaware of. And then he kind of went into like, you see on the praise team, she's going to keep you laughing, but she's a hero because she's doing other things behind the scene. And one of the things I loved about him was he didn't just put me in that position. He actually made me get a psychiatric evaluation to make sure I was ready mentally to open up my story to the congregation. And I was able to share. And then from there, we started little small initiatives to see, okay, does the church even know their status? How many people in the congregation know their status? Just to start, starting the conversation about HIV, because that was just kind of a forbidden thing. And just to kind of take it a little bit further, the pastor friend that I had went to see, and now he's a bishop, he had already said, when I get to a certain point, Spriggs, I'm bringing you back. And a couple of years ago, he actually had his convocation, and he brought me back in to actually speak to his leaders. And you mentioned something that was huge. And I was able to not only talk about the statistics and things of that nature, but I was able to talk about how the church sometimes says stigmatic things or derogatory things to us that I think they weren't aware of. Like, for instance, I remember one New Year's Eve service, they was like, hey, you better praise God that you didn't die. You didn't catch AIDS or HIV in the bed that you was in last night. And, I would be that one I will go off too. I'm like, okay, hallelujah, and go off. But that particular year, it was me. And I was like, hold up, what happens when I was supposed to be in that bed? That was my husband's, that was our bed. And so I started feeling a certain type of way, or it was all this praise and accolades when somebody's cancer went into remission, but there was nothing about, okay, this person went from having a viral load to being undetectable when it came to HIV. And so those were some of the things I was able to openly talk about and to show leadership. We have to be mindful of things that we say, because you don't know who's in your audience that's living with this. And then also making sure that the church has follow up. If a person comes in your prayer line and says, hey, I have HIV, that's different than a person saying I need groceries next week. There needs to be follow up, because it takes so much for us to say that you have to make sure mentally someone follows up, because that could be the difference between someone going home and committing suicide, because the shame that's attached to it. And so that's why I have to say, I would have to say the church was a good foundation for me. And
Good.
it's equipped me to do what I do. Even my leaders now, they're aware of it. But some of us are just called to the outside of the church. And I understand that that's my call.
Yeah. My sister asked a very important question, and we were going to talk about it. Um, she said, what is your new normal like now? And I was going to ask to think about dating so that we could talk about that. How does that, what is the new normal? What is dating like? Y'all, Shawnte is crazy. Shawnte, oh my God, Shawnte. Shawnte is so silly. Shawnte said, let me put my glasses on. Hold on. Let me get my drink. Hold on. Let's talk about this dating and what my new norm is.
Oh my God. And you said this is your sister?
Yeah, that's my sister. Yeah. And
Hi
and and
there.
and we talk about she's her name is Gloria. We call her the good sister. She had a stroke at 45. And so we talk about she had no function on and still don't have a lot of movement on her entire left side. But your statement, and we talk about new normal. We talk about living in a new normal, but I think your statement just helped me see something, because God used that to really heal her inside.
Mhm.
And you want to talk about she used to be one that would cut you and get you right at the door. Now she'll still get you, but she gonna pray first. Now,
Okay.
yeah, she gonna pray first, now.
Okay. It's a
And
protocol to it.
yeah. It's a protocol now. Before it wasn't no protocol.
Right there.
Protocol was chaka, get you. Now, because of that, look. If there's anybody who pushes me, I've never had anybody who pushed me like she does. So anyway, put your little cute glasses back on and tell us about your new normal, and and dating and all that good stuff. What is that like now, and how do you? What is that process?
Well, there was definitely a difference between when I was newly diagnosed and going into a divorce, um, and then being single again, and to where I am now. I
Yeah,
was numb at the beginning. I didn't have any feelings, and so I'm very upfront. Typically by date two, I will put it out there, because most men kind of see me as a strong woman, ambitious, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna break that tough side of you down." I'm like, "Oh God, here we go again." And I said, "Well, look, this is the situation. I have something that you can't make a couple of payments on. This changes. It's not going to change. This is
oh,
what I have, and I have HIV, and I show them my labs on my phone. Tell me what you're going to do with that." And so they're like, and when I had the first guy said, "Oh, okay." What you mean, okay? Because I was using it as a tactic to push people away.
right,
And when I saw that they weren't going away, then I started doing what most people do: the abused become the abuser. I just started abusing everybody, because I was like, okay, if you like me, I'm just going to just dog you and do whatever. And so now I'm finally at the point, after years of God healing his heart and still
yeah,
working on me, that I have options, and I just don't have to just accept what's presented in front of me just because I have so-called HIV. At the end of the day, I'm still Shawnte, and there's certain things and certain standards that I require, and that doesn't need to change because I have this. And so, at this point in my life, I've had a couple of hiccups here and there, but it's been few. I spend a lot of time working on me, and I spend a lot of time finally not doing something for the children.
Yeah,
at
yeah,
all because they're
yeah.
grown.
They're grown.
And so I do a lot of traveling and I work on stuff to build me. I coach other people. And, I'm sorry, if a man can't fit into what I kind of have and what I'm building, then he's not right for me.
Well, hey, yeah, hey, go on and get fit into the plan. Travel, do what you need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so proud of you. I really am. I'm so
Thank
proud of you,
you.
and how you've been able to handle all of that. Talk about your support group. You sent me a um I guess what was it? You did an interview. You did an interview, and you talked about in North Carolina that there were very few women um, in your support group. And how did you handle that when it came to that whole process of not being able to find women's support group and all that good
Yeah.
stuff? Yeah. So what was that like?
When I first went to the seek help, like I said, I was vulnerable. So when you're vulnerable, you're just reaching out for whatever. So I didn't care. And when I went there, I was the only woman. It was all men, and I kept showing up. And then one day, this other young lady came and joined us. But after 5 minutes, she left, and I didn't understand. I said, "Why is that?" They said, "Well, women are not coming out with HIV." Uh, these days it's just unheard of. And so when I had moved back to the DMV area, my job had transitioned. That was one of the first things I said, I got to see if there's, how is that here? And so slowly but surely, I end up being at a conference somewhere, and the co-founder of the organization that I kind of partnered with had actually reached out to me. They heard me tell my story, and I said, I'm what you consider the magic middle. I'm at a certain status as far as income where I don't necessarily qualify for some of the benefits, but I can't assume the whole cost of medication because it could range anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000 a month. I said, so I have to make a conscious decision that do I keep building my career and keep building myself with education and keep climbing the ladder, so called, or do I allow myself to come down so I can qualify for some of the benefits? I'm that magic middle. And she said, I need you at my organization. I said, what? And so she said, you have to come and visit my women at the support group. And I said, okay. She said they need someone to motivate them. They've never seen HIV like this. They've never seen someone that's actually a professional and still working and in school. And I'm just thinking like this is the norm. So I said, okay, I'll go. And so I went, and I went a couple of times. And then she called me back like a year later, and she said, "Hey, I need you to come back." And I said, "Well, that's a bit of a hike for me. It's like 45 minutes away." And I said, "Well, I have to see." She said, "No, but I want you to be on the other side." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "I need to build my numbers up back in the women's group, and I want you to facilitate." And I said, "Facilitate the support group?" And she said, "Yes." And at that time, I was a facilitator for my job. And she said, "You facilitate anyway. It's just this content." And I said, "Oh, okay, we'll see how I go." And our group went from 7 women, and the most that we've gotten to is 22 women. We were in one small conference room, and I remember being in it. And Bishop, you know how I am. I said, "Oh, we're going to outgrow this. This is bigger than this." I did. I looked around and said, "We're going to outgrow this." And literally the next month, they actually purchased another building because we had outgrown it. And so just recently, they just talked about they have to get another room. And even with COVID, with us going virtual, my women are still showing up on Zoom. And so that I would say more women are open to it in this area, but we still have our challenges where women are not disclosing. I know some women that actually hide their medication in other pill bottles, so their grown children do not know what they have. And so I'm trying to get the women to get to the point where they can kind of disclose so they can get that additional support, not just from the support group, but also from their families because they deserve to know.
Yeah. So now you don't lead me to other questions. So is there a ratio to men and women? No, number one, is there a higher ratio to for men to women? And the second question is it still infectious? Like, is it are people still getting infected
Yes, yes.
because they're not lack of knowledge or they know about it or whatever the case may be. So how is that and what should we be looking out for? I mean, what should people be looking out for who date and all that good stuff and all? These are great questions.
Yeah, I mean, I love these questions. Very thought-provoking questions. So first, it is more prevalent in men, and it's more prevalent
Oh, wow.
in what we call MSM, and that's men having sex with men or
Okay.
homosexuals. And so, as of 2018, according to the CDC, which is most of the time where I get my statistics from, it was actually shown that African Americans were had the higher rates when it comes to STDs, and
Right.
so as a result it makes us more susceptible to having HIV. Because if you have an STD, then that means you're pretty much having sex unprotected, more likely to get HIV. And so when it comes to women, what they found that out of every 100 women that have HIV, 90 knew of their status.
Wow.
So 90 knew of their status. So they had an idea that they
Wow.
could be. So you have that other 10. But as a result, I will say that some of our numbers as far as women are going down because uh, we are becoming more aware. We're becoming more cautious. Like, for instance, at the beginning when I said I was getting tested every year,
Right.
well, I was going to my doctor and said, test me for everything. But everything is not everything. You
Yeah,
have
that's
to
true.
specify HIV in some cases. And so because I was saying everything and they checked the box, I was assuming that was it. So
Right.
educating women on these things when they go to their doctor and said, no, test me for HIV. Um, those things are helping us with our numbers, but there still is a gap with us as far as women coming out and being aware of it.
Wow.
I would say what to look for. Look, that's a great question. Know your status. Just start there. And it's actually this Sunday, which is June 27th, is National HIV Testing Day. So I mean, there's ways that you can find out. You can just put it in.
Oh, get out of here. We planned this right then. This is pretty good.
This the Lord's doing,
It's the
and it's marvelous.
it is marvelous. So it is a matter of making sure, because I was going to say, are there signs like with COVID? Because I want you to talk about that and how you live your life in HIV and the COVID thing. Is it like you get fatigued? Are you, I mean, what happens? Is there something that happens with your body that should be trigger points that's more than just a cold or much like COVID? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm asking.
It could be. And once again, that goes back to your CD4 count on your T cells. If your T cells are high enough, then there's very little infection in you. You're pretty
Got
much
you.
well. And so, for instance, my T cells, the norm for people to find out, they find out when they're like at 700. And
Okay.
so typically with me, I think I was around 11 something, 1200. My doctor said there's only been 3 cases that he's actually had where someone was that high. Because typically you find out because a result of you getting sick. I wasn't sick.
Got you.
I was healthy. And so
Yeah.
once again, that's one of those indicators that I knew that it was bigger than me. Because how do I come up in here with this and I ain't even sick? But anyway,
Right.
and so basically the whole thing is that once you keep your T cells up, you're going to be healthy. So you can't really look at a person and tell they have HIV. That's why I say you
Got
have to know your status. And so going back to one of the questions that you had mentioned before, are people still getting infected? Absolutely. But
Wow.
one of the newest things, which is about 3 years ago, according to the CDC, we have what we call U equals U. So U means undetectable equals untransmittable. So it has been proven that if you can get your viral load to an undetectable status, which is where I am, meaning when I get tested, it doesn't show, it shows as undetectable. It has been proven that I can no longer transmit the disease. There's a 1% chance that it can, and typically that's in women that are pregnant. There ain't nothing coming about these loins here no more. I already had enough.
So mad at you for that.
There's nothing else. So I don't have to worry about that. So if you hear U equals U, that's what we're talking about. Undetectable equals untransmittable. And the reason for that, not only do we have our viral load that's helping us, but I'm sorry, bitch, there's nothing coming out of here. Not only do we have that, but we also have PrEP. So PrEP is something that, for instance, if I'm dating someone, whoever he may be, just remember what I said before, the standards and the criteria would be, if he wanted to date me and wanted to take an extra precaution, even though I'm undetectable, he could take PrEP, which is one of the HIV medications, and he will not contract the disease.
Oh, okay.
And so that's when you see a lot of the commercials about PrEP, and then there's also PEP too, but we'll talk about that later. So PEP
Okay.
is actually it's new, but it's not too new. But PEP is actually the drug that they used to give individuals when they were sexually assaulted to actually drive off HIV. So you have PrEP, which is before,
Uh-huh.
and then let's say I was sexually assaulted and I don't know who assaulted me, they would give me PEP, and
Pep.
it would kill off the virus
Oh,
within
wow.
a certain time frame, but you have to take it within a certain time frame, like 48 hours. So you have the medication for before,
Right.
and you have the medication for after,
After.
but we don't have what's in the middle. Okay, I'm gonna leave that alone.
I got you. I got you. I got you. That's interesting. That's really you educating us. I was going to ask you one other question.
You
Man,
asked about COVID.
yes,
Uh-huh.
tell us, because what she was saying to us is that her life living HIV was similar to our life that we started doing in COVID, of which I am not sure I'm ever gonna shake another person's hand. I think I'm gonna be fist bumping or Wakanda forever, elbow, whatever the case may be, because out of all of that, I didn't even get a cold. I didn't even get a sniffle. I got nothing during the winter month, nothing. And it's because I was constantly, washing hands. I was constantly putting on hand sanitizer. I was not touching anybody. Our business is touching and hugging. And it dawned on me, like I didn't get a sniffle. I got nothing during the during the season. And I thought, this might be um, my new way of functioning or operating, because if I felt healthy. So tell me about that. How did you all, or how do you all navigate, or how did you all navigate um, prior to COVID, and how COVID didn't do anything really more different than what you were doing?
Well, I would have to say that there was there was several similarities. Like we were told, of course, at the beginning to make sure that we keep our immune system intact. That's what they were telling everyone with COVID, or to fight off COVID, or just to prevent COVID. Take your vitamins.
Right.
Make sure you exercise. Well, those are things that we were already told to keep ourselves healthy with HIV. Because one thing that the virus does, because it's constantly trying to mutate, it makes us fatigue, and I think you mentioned that before. And so
Yes.
exercising helps me, vitamins helps me, eating better helps me, because it's constantly fighting to attack my body. So what would normally, let's say you would get tired around 7 p.m., my body gets tired by noon, because
Oh,
it's
wow.
working overtime to fight off the virus. So
Wow.
I would have to do supplements throughout the day and eat right to make sure I keep my energy level up. So we had already knew some of these things. Social distancing wasn't nothing that was new to us, because if you have a cold or anything, we were already kind of staying away. And then also a reason why social distancing wasn't the something new to us, there were still a lot of people that's dealing with the stigmatism that's actually associated with HIV. So they were
Right.
already in silos. They were already in caves. They were already kind of staying away from certain people and certain populations, because they were afraid that people are going to find out about the HIV, or people are going to, shout them out, or people are going to, there were so many different things. And so surprisingly, the only thing that we had to worry about with COVID was making sure our mental state was together, because dealing with HIV and already dealing with the stigma that can be attached to it and not disclosing, and then to have to be confined even smaller to your homes. There was a lot of things that we had to make sure that that mental aspect was in place. So that's why I kept in touch with my ladies. I wanted to make sure every 2 weeks we were doing our support group. I sent care packages. One day, me and another young lady, we just got in our car and we took care packages to them on behalf of the organization. And, of course, they couldn't come out, but we would leave it at the door. Then I get back to my car and I wave and tell them how much I love them. But they needed to see that. And this is where I would say, like, it's an extension of the body of Christ, because these are things that, this is ministry. We're supposed to still show people, even through a pandemic, that we're there and we still love them and we still care for them. But COVID wasn't something that was new for us. We were already doing these things. Surprisingly, some of the medications that they use for the vaccine was actually pulled from some of the sponsorships for some of the HIV medications, such as Gilead, helped with some of the vaccination. So when I started doing my research and seeing that they were tapping on the shoulders of certain companies and certain organizations for the vaccine, I said, "Oh, well, we're good because we already taking the medicine. We're just already in us, so we're good." And that's just one of the things that we've been able to kind of navigate through. And then my women, we don't just talk about our emotions and our feelings, but I recently did a financial coaching with them. I brought in a friend of mine and he did some financial coaching because during this time, I'm using this to empower them and build them and mentally deal with some things. So that way, when the world does open up completely, they are a better person and hopefully they can start disclosing and come out of those silos and really come out healed and whole.
Do you, is there something the church, because I sit up and I think about this often because, I'm in music and we go to concerts quite often. Well, we used to. So we're getting ready to start back. Right. We used to go to a whole bunch of concerts. And I wonder, is there a lot that you know of or that you think about that we are actively around it, but they don't know how to feel comfortable? Because sometimes because of the hole in this way, like that, you better thank God you didn't die. We said it, and the moment you said it, I was like, oh man, I need to be a little bit more sensitive about calling out the disease. I usually just say you didn't get caught in the hotel, or you better be glad you didn't die where you were, and stuff like that. But I usually.
But what if I did? But what if I did get caught? He's still not going to love me. He's still not going to care. Y'all still not going to receive me at the church. Since those things.
No, we're going to receive you. It's just that if you die, you're going to be dead. And
you're going to be dead.
You're going to be dead.
You're going to be gone. You're going to be gone. We would have received you. But
we would have received you.
We would have.
But
I would met them at the door.
Yeah, but you gone. So, but we have to, as a church, be okay, and we're learning how to. As preachers, we got to learn another way of how we say what we say, because it's turning out to be, man, you can't say that, and I'm learning. I'm learning. I learned to just talk about myself. I talk about what I did, and I'm grateful God got me out. I don't even use other people. I told them Sunday that my daddy was horrible. I ain't want to talk about nobody else. My father, it was Father's Day. I said I had a sorry father. I went at it because I have to talk about me. I don't want to talk about some of them. And I'm looking at them, I'm like, you look like my daddy, but I can't say that because they'll put me out. You act like my daddy used to. And so I just talk about me. But we have to, as preachers and priests, learn how to navigate and talk about things differently when we say it, because there is this sensitivity, things like, you're not going crazy. Well, there are some people who really are going through depression, and they may be going through HIV, and I don't know about it. So they may have these depressive thoughts, and I'm having to deal with learning how to teach differently. And it's because, people like yourself, you're the only person that I know that said they had HIV. Out of all the people I know, I don't know anybody personally who said, hey, Williams, I have HIV. Nobody. If they had, nobody has come to me and said that. And so there is this, we're not sensitive enough. You know what I'm saying? You're not sensitive enough as leaders, and we're having to work on our sensitivity because now we're public. It's not just in the little church. I'm on Facebook Live every Sunday. this is going nationwide. So we're having to be sensitive, and we just don't know. So we're learning to your to the people who have HIV or who have other diseases. We are learning as people. We're not trying to isolate you. We're having to learn how to navigate through this differently, because whereas we never had it before, it's all around us. Now
It's
we know
here.
about cancer. We know people about cancer. We know now homosexuality, lesbianism. It is growing. And it's in the church. I mean, it's just leaps and
It's
bounds.
here.
But we only knew about single mamas. Daddies wasn't no good. We knew about the people singing in the church,
We
and
knew the after school specials.
we knew the after school special. But we did not. HIV was not, and has not been, and is not a part of this whole thing. We are just learning from this year of being on Behind the Veil. Everybody, when I tell you, everybody is down with therapy and going to see a psychologist. We used to speak in tongues and God was going to heal you. We did not go to, if you had Jesus. My mama would go in the room, close the door, and find Jesus, and you better find him. And now we're having to adjust that maybe you need to go to a therapist. Maybe this isn't something that the bishop can just lay hands on you,
Yeah.
i.e., HIV, cast that devil out, and you not go get some follow up and some support and some help. So we're having to adjust to a new way of presenting Jesus. And so I want to applaud you, because you're the only person who has public that I know of who's publicly said it. Williams, this is what I got. Hey Bishop, this is where I am, and this is how I'm handling it. And I applaud you, because
Thank you.
you've taken the stigma, even off of what I thought it was, and you removed that stigma so that I can walk a little bit more circumspectly, because maybe it isn't HIV that God uses to heal. Maybe it was something else, as you said earlier. Maybe he was trying to do something else in the
And
person.
and I would have to say we have to be mindful. And I would say that there were things that came along that, because I didn't even know I had some internal stigmas,
Got you.
meaning that I had put myself in this mindset, but then there was also external factors. But I remember I came across a gentleman, and I slipped him a note to tell him, he was working with me on a project, and I slipped him a note to say, hey, make sure I eat, because I will get caught up in a tangent and I won't eat. I have to eat. And I put on a sticky, HIV. And that
Wow.
was my way to tell him. He looked at me, and he was no more than his 20s, and he said, how did you know? I was trying to tell him about me.
Wow.
These are the things that's happening along my, and I said, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Oh
And
wow.
I said, well, I wasn't. I said, it's about me. And so I had to pull him in another conference room, and he just cried, because he said, I thought I didn't have no one to talk to about this, but you've been placed here on this project with me. And I said, and so he was telling me his story. And this one said, we have to be mindful. He actually got it from his mom, because she was on some type of substance, and he got it from her breast milk. So he's lived his whole life with it.
Wow.
So what
Yeah.
do you do when you have
Yeah.
that type of person
Yeah.
in your congregation? That affected how he dates. That
Yeah.
affected him in middle school, high
Yeah.
school, because people would automatically assume
That's right.
that
That's right.
because he has HIV, that he live a certain lifestyle or
That's
what
right.
have you. And that wasn't the case. And so when I started seeing these different glimpses of other ways that people could actually get HIV, I was like, it doesn't matter no more. And so one of the things that you said that you guys have to, as far as bishops and leaders, you have to be able to say things differently. I don't think, as much as I appreciate that, I don't think that whole responsibility should be on you all. I
Yeah.
think some of us should take ownership, that if we're
Yeah.
hearing things a certain way
Yeah.
or it's bothering us,
Say
don't
something.
sit there and
Say
just
something.
be woe is me and upset or call and complain about it. Set up a meeting with who you need to. Go follow protocol first, but say what needs to be said in a nice way where people can
Yeah.
receive it, because you don't know what you don't know. Just like you said, you didn't know that that's something that could offend someone.
Right.
And so these are I think it's two-sided. Everybody's having to adjust the way
Yep.
that they do things. But in order for us to be a healed community as a whole and in the body of Christ, I think it's going to take both sides. If we're offended, we can't just sit there and keep being offended.
Right.
We have to say, hey, and we can't put all that on you all to be our actual God and you all to fix everything, because that's not your job.
Right. And I'm trying to be a better dude. You know what I'm saying? I just want
Oh,
to,
you're the best,
and
Bishop.
and and that's why we're having this platform. This platform is not something that I get to do on Sunday mornings. My job is to give you knowledge and understanding according to the Word of God, and so I can't address all of these kinds of issues. And so what Behind the Veil is doing is it's educating me. It is revamping my thought process out of all those 30 years of how we did preaching and the subject matter, and being afraid to address it, and just being dogmatic about certain things. We really do need to address, because everybody didn't live or doesn't live a lifestyle. And even if they did, what are we going to do about the HIV? You understand what I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because I need to get you some help. I need to
This the
make sure.
hospital. This supposed to be the hospital. Isn't this
Yeah.
supposed to come? I'm supposed to be sick, but I'm sick, and I'm saying I'm sick, and I ain't getting no help. I
And I
gotta
ain't
get it
getting no help.
elsewhere. This
That's
not
right.
supposed to be what's. This
It's
supposed
not
to be I can fix everything else except for this here. I
right.
got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Right. Yeah. And so all of this has been educating us as well. This is why we love this platform,
I love it.
because we get to talk about whatever we want to talk about in the confinements, and it doesn't have to be religious. The one thing that I can say about you that I am grateful for, and this is going to make you holler. I always knew you had a calling. You always knew you had a calling. It's just that we always thought it was the calling through the lens of how we saw it. But God has made you a preacher through this without a license. And it's not the way we wanted you to be with the big hat, because that was the limitation of how we saw preachers. And so God has, through this, figured out a way how to get you to answer your call. And I think that in and of itself, when I'm listening to you tonight, that in and of itself is reshaping my thought process, instead of maybe assigning people as ministers. Let's find out, instead of putting a title on you, let's see if God can really use you the way you should be used. Serving is serving. Minister is minister. Preaching is preaching. I preach from the pulpit. You preach from your facilitation. Both of us are doing what we are called to do. You understand?
That's good.
And I can't be upset, because that's how God used you. And nobody should be upset, because you need my kind of preacher in the pulpit, and we need your kind of preaching at the facilitation. You understand what I'm saying? And so we got to lift the stigma of, I got to be this and wear a collar and do this and speak a certain way. Now, you all got to dance, or you all got to praise God. And if you don't praise God and stuff like that, now we're gonna have to have a conversation. You at least got to wave your hand. You got to, but you're ministering, and I am so godly proud that what we saw years ago, God has used this to make you become what we saw. He just went about it a whole nother way.
The way he does it.
And that's the way he does it. Oh, you are awesome. You are awesome.
Thank you, Bishop.
Yeah, she has two gorgeous children. Her son In fact, I said I was going to tonight. I said I was going to call you. I mean, tell you, send me his number because I think I want him to produce my next churchy project because
Yes.
he is a musician and I'm old school, so I ain't got but a few more. My window is closing, and so, but if I can get to him, I might be able to get a little bit more life in my thinking, and because her son is absolutely one of the best producers and musicians in this area, and her daughter, I think her daughter should be a model. I don't know what's going on over there. They got a spirit, and her daughter's like, I don't know, that girl that turned tall and beautiful. And I was like, what the what? She, and that was a little girl. We used to have to hold on
On the CD. They was
on
both
the
on the
CD,
CD.
both on the CD. I mean, just years ago, little chillins done turned into people telling us what to do. And so I appreciate it. You have a book. We got to put your book up. I think we're going to disappear and your book is coming. It's called Undetected. More Than a Status by Shawnte Spriggs. Y'all, please go out and support her. Buy a book. It's forwarded by Bishop Younger, who is
Yes.
another praising and shouting, carrying on and stuff, speaking in tongues and all that good stuff. I saw him doing the COVIDs, and he wasn't even stopping doing the COVIDs. Bless his heart. Bless his heart, just dancing and carrying on. And so she's an author. She is a speaker. What else you do? She's a praiser. She'll come to your church. She's a pusher. She is a motivator. She'll get it done for you. And she's doing all of this being healed a different kind of way. Tell people if they want to express themselves or if they're going through something, how can they reach you? What can they do to support you and talk to you?
Absolutely. So first of all, I want to say thank you again, Bishop. Thank you for believing in me, even way back when all I could do is muster up. Let me fix y'all some spaghetti before we had rehearsal.
Ooh, it was good.
And I just because I was new to the area, and you guys just kind of embraced me and became my family. So thank you, and thank you for helping me with my children. I just want to shout out some people I saw here, my cousin Shanita, Christina, my godson Jordan. But I just want to say, look, if you guys want to get in touch with me, you see what it is. I'm an open book. It is what it is. I don't know how to be anyone else because this is who God made at this point, and I'm finally embracing it, and I'm okay with it. I'm on Facebook as well as Instagram, Shawnte Spriggs. I'm going to keep it simple. As far as my book, Undetected More Than a Status, you can find it on Amazon Kindle. And as well as in February, I actually released it on Audible. And yours truly is doing the narration. So you get to hear all this DC accent that y'all say y'all still hear, but I don't hear.
What? A mess, y'all. I know it's a mess.
Hit me up. Send me a message if you need places to go to as far as to get testing for National HIV Testing Day. Just reach out. I will connect you. It doesn't have to necessarily be me because I've learned that in this whole journey that I'm not the only one that's designated to do this. We have other people that I can link you to that can assist you. But feel free if you just want to talk. I will say with my book, one thing that I tried to touch on was every emotion that I dealt with HIV, but it's not just about HIV. It's about anxiety. It's about insomnia. It's about wearing a mask. And it's about coming out on the other side of it. So please feel free to take a look and just tell me what you think. Leave some feedback. Let me know what you think. But I'm working on my next one. And Bishop, you touched on it.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about that mental piece next.
It is a major component. It is major. I said in one of the posts when I was advertising for this, I said, the healer, but you are, and our topic is I know the healer, but I live with, and I put ... because it's more than just HIV that's happening out here. The healer, but there's some other stuff that you're dealing with, and the way Shawnte has expressed it, and God, you messed me up with who said I'm not healed. That's the line. That's the line. That's the line that has shut down the whole thing.
Because my blood shows undetected. So if we're going to look at the facts,
Yeah.
the facts is showing undetected. So why am I sitting up here worried about a stigma or what you think about me when God really went in and did what needed to be healed? That heart was nasty. That mind was nasty. It was all perverted. I didn't see myself as a daughter, but now I'm coming out as a daughter and I can kind of pull others out. No, he did that. He did, and that's why now when I praise him,
you have the floor. You have final words, and don't go offline when we go offline. But you have final words to that. That woman who's sitting there and don't know exactly who's in her corner. She's been diagnosed and don't know who to talk to, or maybe that young man who is afraid to talk about it. Or that church person or that preacher, that prophet that's living with this, and they just don't know how to go about. What do you say to them? How do you encourage them? What are your words of encouragement to them? The floor is yours.
I would have to say, wherever you are, whoever you may be, just understand that it's bigger than you. Even if you're in ministry and you're already a leader and you're living with HIV, or someone that is, it's so much bigger than you. And what you're feeling today, you may still feel it 3 months from now, but I promise you, you will not feel this way all the time. And don't be afraid to reach out to one person. If you can find one person to reach out to, and that could be me, and I can help connect you to a whole entire community. Don't be afraid to reach out. There's so much support here. There's so many benefits. There's so many ways that you can get connected. There's so many ways that you can learn how to live. Just don't sit in that cave by yourself. Don't sit in that pit by yourself. Because listen, we out here, we live it. We have our moments, but guess what? We're no longer going through those moments alone. We have other people that look like us and feel what we feel, and we get through them, and we get through them quicker because we have support. So don't hesitate to reach out. I can connect you where you need to be connected. If nothing else, I can definitely pray for you. So if you just need someone just to pray, to shoot me an IM or DM, and hey, I'm here. But whatever you do, just understand that you won't always feel this way, and it's so much bigger than you, and you'll understand it, as they say, better by and by.
Girl, I absolutely love you, and thank you so much.
I love you too. I miss you, Bishop.
I miss you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on Behind the Veil. I got a song. It ain't even on my thing, but because you're from the DMV, it's got some of that DMV kind of groove to it.
That go-go.
It's got some of that little go-go in it that I'm going to put up, and that's how we going to go out. But look, y'all, thank y'all so much. Listen, next week, I don't even have a guest, but next week, guess what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about the difference between Juneteenth and July 4th. Which one should we really be celebrating?
I'm going to have to tune in for that.
It's going to be good. Juneteenth versus July 4th. What we know and what we don't know about that, because the 4th of July is coming up, and I want to make sure that you ain't just speaking in tongues and eating hot dogs. I want you to be educated about what we're doing. Listen, I got to get out of here. This is Behind the Veil, and I am so grateful for you to be able to join us. Listen, Shawnte Spriggs, y'all check her out and do what you know how to do in Jesus' name. I'm Stephen Williams. They call me the Good Bishop, and we're being educated behind the veil. Until our next appointed time, he's a mighty God. Yeah, here we go. That's up your alley.
That's right up.
That's up your alley.
I tell you, he's a mighty,
I might be able to come to the DMV and sing this.
Come on. Y'all want to hear the Bishop of the DMV on all my people from DMV, go and chime on in.
Y'all, we got to go. Thank y'all for joining me behind the veil. Stephen Williams here. I love this song. When your son get it, it's gonna be the bomb. I gotta get out of here. I love Shawnte. Shawnte crazy, y'all, but she is powerful all day.
I got a date. I gotta get out.
We gotta go. Love you guys until our next appointed time. Y'all be blessed. Don't go nowhere, Shawnte.